Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. If you like this episode today, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star rating. I'm thrilled to have Justin Henshaw on the show today. Justin is the founder and CEO of GAGE and the owner of Henshaw Companies. Well, Justin, I am absolutely thrilled to have you on the Something Extra podcast today. Thank you so much for joining me all the way from St. Simons, Georgia.
That's right. St. Simons Island. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
me.
Absolutely. Well, you're just such a force for good. And I told you, you're big. There's a lot to you. Many, many facets to Justin Henshaw. And so, I'm hoping that we can cover a lot of that today. But you know what? I have to do a shout out to our mutual friend, Jim Bechtold. And we've just had a little sidebar conversation about Jim and just what an amazing human being he is. What did you say that he's like a cheerleader?
Sometimes God just throws people right in your life at the right time. And he's one of those people. Like, he's been just such a cheerleader for me and for the project I'm working on now. And just, he really believes in it. He's been such a supporter. So thank you, Jim.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's a very, very special person. Well, I cannot wait, Justin, to dig into your story and introduce you to our listeners. So I do want to take me back to growing up. Of course, you're a native of St. Simons Island. You're a
That's
native.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But, there's some, really difficult things in your story, but some beautiful things too. So take me back to growing up.
Sure. I'm from pretty tough childhood, or at least a poverty-stricken one. We grew up pretty poor. My mother, when I was younger, struggled with drug and alcohol abuse, and eventually depression. And she never really, shook that. And she committed suicide when I was about 8 years old. And my grandmother took custody of me and my sister. And she didn't have money either. She worked as a clerk at the hospital and as a cashier at our local Winn-Dixie grocery store, and she took custody of me and my sister and raised us. But she raised us, with love, not a whole lot of it else, but a lot of love. And so, thanks to her, we grew up safe, and loved, which is awesome. And, I'm so grateful. Matter of fact, she lives with us, me and my wife now.
Does she? That's awesome. How old is she now, Justin?
89, I think. Yeah, yeah, I should know that, but it's 89.
That's so special. That's so special. Well, like you said, she worked 2 jobs. I mean, she was all in with you guys, right? And I kind of read something that you had written, and I thought that was really funny. You said you were showered with love and you were incredibly spoiled,
Yes.
but not with a lot of discipline. And I can relate. It's really easy to do that as a grandparent. We have a 10-year-old grandson, and my
Right.
husband spoils him rotten.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like she didn't have time to make sure that, I did my homework, and she didn't,
Mhm.
I, she, more or less just let me quit, a lot of sports that I probably shouldn't have when I was a kid. And I didn't have a male figure in my life. I always joke around that my first father figure was my drill instructor in the Marine Corps. But 'cause I was raised by women. I was raised by my grandmother, my aunt who lived with us, for most of our childhood, and then my sister.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. That makes you a really good husband, though, because you understand women, which is really, really good, and we won't talk about
My
that.
wife, real quick, can you just say that over? Just let me.
That makes you a really good husband, Justin, because you understand women. So yes, you can write that down and give her that little clip. But this is interesting to me. So when you were a young man, you moved to New York to pursue a career in acting, and our oldest son Jordan, did the same thing.
Really?
So he left high school and went to LA, and not to New York, but went to LA and spent 5 years there acting. So what was it for you? How did it go for you? I mean, why acting? Was there somebody in your life? Did you love a story? I mean, what was the precipice?
I guess music was kind of the beginning for me. I my grandmother, encouraged me to, be in band when I was, a kid, and I learned a lot of instruments. I was a big band geek in high school. I definitely wasn't one of the cool kids, but I loved arts and the performing arts, and then I got into theater and acting in high school, and I really love that. I love the ability to just kind of become someone else and step into another role, and feeling that out. And I didn't have the grades. I tried to get into some schools like, Georgia, go Dogs. I
Mhm.
would have died to go to Georgia, but I couldn't because I didn't have the grades. Uh,
Mhm.
and I just really didn't know. I didn't have a lot of direction back then. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I had this opportunity actually that just led to New York, and I moved there. I actually started out modeling, believe it or not, and that kind of, I used that as kind of like my gateway into acting. I did a lot of runway shows and stuff like that back in the day. Now this was a long time ago. Okay, so this was 60 pounds ago, and two kids ago, but still, yeah, it was fun. But when I moved to New York, I obviously that was my first experience anywhere. Like, I mean, I hadn't even left,
Mhm.
you know. So New York was a huge staging point, in my life, and obviously led to everything else in dramatic acting.
Right. E Yes, and we're gonna get into that. Well, you know what? There's so many connection points here, that I did not know before we started talking, but, first of all, Jenny, my EA that you've met that is amazing, was a theater major,
Really?
and yes, and she was in New York for a while, and, yeah, she's got some fun stories. We'll have to send you a podcast that she and I did. And then Jordan, our son, he started modeling as well. That's how
Yeah.
he started out. He was Next in New York. He was, represented by Next in New York and did Abercrombie in New York and Ralph Lauren and Miami and Vogue in Paris, and that was kind of his entree too.
So back in the day, well, what happened was, in Jacksonville, there was this small little agency that I started working for, and Tommy Hilfiger, himself actually came into town. He was doing these PR events, going around to like Bloomingdale's and Macy's and signing autographs and stuff. And whenever he goes into town, he hires this entourage of like local models, and that
Mhm.
was kind of like the introduction. I met one of his people. They said, "Hey, you should come to New York. Maybe we'll get you some work," and that was enough for me. I worked at Outback, saved some money for through a summer, and then I packed my bags and left. So
Yeah.
modeling was really, and my claim to fame. I didn't really. I mean, I did some extra work for like soap operas and stuff, but I really didn't get very far. To be honest with you, my claim to fame was 15 seconds in Sex in the City. Actually, that's probably
Oh, well, cool. That is so cool. So I'm gonna go Google Justin Henshaw, the actor,
you won't
when
find
we're
it. I've
finished
already
here.
tried.
Yeah.
It's like one of those classic scenarios where I actually had a role. Like I had a speaking role. I told my family about it, told my friends, and got everybody excited. And they cut the scene. They literally cut the
Oh, no.
I actually
That's
found
awesome.
myself, 20 years later buying the DVD and looking at deleted scenes to see if I can find it, but I couldn't.
Oh
And
my goodness.
they literally cut it, and you could see me for like 15 seconds. That's it, and so
Yeah.
pretty embarrassing.
That is so funny. Well, we're more connected than I even knew actually in our stories. But, again, I mean, Justin, even though that could didn't quite work out, you had an event. You were in New York City when 9/11 happened,
Yeah.
and you witnessed that and something changed in you. Tell our listeners what you decided to do.
Well, I mean, I never really was a militant person, or I had none of my family, were in the military. Frankly, my parents were, not, let's just say not military driven. And I never really thought about it, never crossed my mind. And of course, that morning, kind of everything changed for me. But I was working as a personal trainer on the side, and I was literally working in a gym that morning, and I was going to leave. I was going to go to the studios where we were filming for Guiding Light at the time, and I was leaving the gym, and I remember, they had like the cardio studio all on one side, right? And so
Mm.
everybody's running, everybody's working out, and I remember this eerie feeling, like as I was walking out, everybody kind of stopped. Like everybody stopped running, stopped working out, and they just started staring up at the screens, like staring at the TV. And I went around and I saw what was going on, and that was, back when just, hey, a plane hit it was like, that's that we thought it was drunk, or we thought it was just like this random accident.
Accident.
Everybody remembers the first, hour, where everybody just
Mhm.
weird. So I left the gym, went to the studios, and by the time I got into the studios, um, the second plane had hit, and now these studios were actually very close to the UN building and that area. And so by that time, I think everybody knew what was going on. National Guard had kind of shut off that block, and we weren't really able to leave. We had to stay within the studios, and within these studios, you had principals and extras. They don't mix, right? They don't mingle. This
Right.
principals, their rooms,
Right.
and extras. We're down there, and but today they descended from on high to mingle with the commoners, and no, we all just got we got into one room together. And I remember, like, if we can't leave, the executives and everybody, the staff, the crew, all got into like their conference room, and we just watched the news all day. You know,
Mhm.
and that was when the Pentagon got hit, and it was very surreal. And then whenever we were permitted to leave, that was, again, something I'll never forget, because the streets were empty. We were literally walking down the middle of Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue, and I'm just sorry, but it was like, it was just some
Like
weird. And
surreal. It
yeah, it
felt
was,
surreal, I'm sure.
it's like out of a movie, and I still remember,
Mhm.
like, bars, like people were in these bars, and of course, angry and screaming and shouting, and it was just kind of a strange moment. And I had finally gotten in my apartment, and my apartment was at like kind of Inwood, which is above the Bronx, and it was not much, but I had a terrace. I had like this. I was high up, and I had a terrace, and I had a view of all of south of Manhattan, and I could obviously see the smoke and everything.
Mhm.
And I sat on that for about a week, and then I went to Times Square and signed up for the Marine Corps. Now it was kind of back then. It's not like that now, but back then the recruiting office was literally a like one office for all the branches, like in the center
Mhm.
of Times Square, where all the branches were separated by these cubicles, and like, so when you go in, it's like a cattle auction. It's like, oh, come here, come here, come here, and
Mhm.
I remember I just wanted the Marine Corps, and so I went down there and signed up, and I was emotional and angry, and then that's it. That's the rest is history. And I guess a few
Yeah.
months later, I went to boot camp.
Mhm. Where'd you go? Camp
Paris Island.
Lejeune? Paris Island, yeah. Dad was at Camp Lejeune.
Well,
So
Camp Lejeune was the that's the Second Marine Division. That's the actual main base. But Paris Island is the boot camp. If you're
mhm.
East Coast, and
Yeah,
then West Coast, it's I guess Camp Pendleton. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, that's incredible, really. I mean, because a switch flipped in you, Justin, because a lot of people witnessed that and they didn't go sign up to be a Marine, but something flipped in you to say, you love your country and patriotism was at
We're
an all-time high then.
there were those that did exactly what I did. Matter of fact, there was a lot of them, and we even called ourselves like the 9/11 babies because I remember when I signed up, like I was on a waiting list. Like I mean, that's something you don't really.
Wow.
They literally put me on a waiting list to go to Paris Island. I wasn't able to go to Paris Island until like February, which was like 6 months later. Matter of fact, the day I stepped on the yellow footprints at Paris Island was the 6 month anniversary of 9/11,
9/11.
and I believe that's when I think they put the spotlights in the sky, and
Mhm.
and so it was, but so there were many of us and that joined, which is really unique because a lot of us were older than our NCOs and our officers, like because we were in our 20s. I was 21. I had people that were older than me. Never thought about joining the military. Matter of fact, my best friend in the Marine Corps, he was a chef at the Union Square Cafe in Manhattan. These are people that were living their lives, doing their thing, never thought about joining, and they all did. So there was quite a few of us.
Yeah. Well, we could spend a lot of time on this, but I've got so much more things that I want to talk to you about. But my dad, would always talk about just the discipline that he learned and the work ethic and the camaraderie and the teamwork and it's we, not I. I mean, all of those amazing lessons. But so you were honorably discharged in 2008, and you came back home and you decided to use the GI Bill to enroll in college at College of Coastal Georgia, and you were 28 years old. But it was funny because you said you kind of felt like you were 18. You felt like you were starting all over, in
Wow,
college.
you did your research. Yeah, absolutely. That's something I say a lot. Yeah, I always say that because when I went to college, I started college. That's when people are usually 18 years old, right? And I was 28, and it felt like there was just this 10-year gap, and it felt like I started over. It felt like I was 28, but and with a lifetime of experience, right? Like just New York and Marines and combat, and but then I had to start over, right? And so it felt like those 10 years, while it certainly made me who I was, it didn't really, I couldn't put Justin Henshaw, I'm really good with a K bar on a resume, right?
Right.
So I didn't have sometimes when you go to the military, you learn a trade, right? You become an electrician,
Yes.
something like that. But I was infantry, so unless if you worked for the government or organized crime, you were kind of out of luck. So I had to go.
Sure. Yeah.
I had to go to I had to go to college and use my GI Bill and try to make something of myself.
Hmm. What do you believe that you learned from the college experience, just as you learned from the Marine Corps? What were those key learnings do you believe that college taught you?
Well, I think that again, I without the discipline from the Marine Corps, it wouldn't have really worked because I was just not disciplined. I was just a completely different person. And I tried college, like kind of right before New York. We kind of glanced over that part and it didn't work. But this time I was disciplined and I could see things through, and
Hmm.
I still don't think I was a great student. I was too busy starting businesses in college. I wasn't, like
Yes.
I was like, I joke around with my friends, I was like, thanks for doing my homework all those years, kind of stuff. And it's just, I really wasn't that. I was, a B student, not nothing exceptional. But it was kind of like something I just, I had the GI Bill and I wanted to see it through. But yeah, in business, in college, I started two businesses.
I
So
know. Islands of Sound, right? Was one of those.
yes, Island Sound was the first one, and that was my baby, and still kind of one of the largest, companies that I own today. That they do really well. I DJ'd for weddings, 10 years prior to that, like when I was in high school, and I wanted to supplement my GI Bill, just have some extra income. So I started DJing these weddings and special events, and found out that I was really good at it, and found out that there was really good money in it, and I double booked myself, and then I hired my best friend and then hired another friend, and then Island Sound, kind of took off. Uh,
Right. I mean, aren't you in 12 states or something like that now?
yeah,
Justin, that's crazy.
we're in between Michigan and Tampa, Florida, and all along kind of the eastern seaboard. I think we're doing about 700 to 800 weddings now. I'm very disconnected from the business.
Day to day.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm,
Sure.
but I have an awesome team and operator that soon to be managing partner that's running it, and he's killing it. So I think we're in between like 700 to 800 weddings a year right now. And we've more than just DJ. We do rentals and musicians and basically
Mhm.
anything like lighting and stuff like that for
Right.
events. Yeah,
Yeah, but then you mentioned you did start another one, and that Coasters?
that was coasters.
That
Yeah,
was Coasters, a food truck, right? And which kind of catapulted you into the whole food and beverage world.
it did. It was. I always call it my education while I was getting an education. It was kind of like my lesson learned. Of course, I went on to learn many lessons after that, but it was it was fun. It was a class project actually. I was in entrepreneurship class, and obviously that was speaking wildly to me because I just started Island Sound and it was doing well. And all my friends were like, "Hey, man, this food truck is a really good idea." And back then, food trucks were the craze. I mean, I don't know about now, but it was like there was a show and there was a food truck wars, and
Yeah.
they were popping up all over the place, but they really weren't here. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I said, why not? And I was making good money, and so I did it. And for whatever it was worth, it was a lot of work. Obviously, people say start a food truck, it's easy. It's not. It's wildly hard. And I just,
Mhm.
people just anyway. But we did burgers and fries, and we would do like kind of the late night scene. Like this is a high tourism area, so like the bar scene between like 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. where all the restaurants were closed. We did pretty well. Um, but then that we closed that whenever the next opportunity came.
Sure. But you know what? I read something and I'm trying to think. I can't even give credit to it because I don't, it may have been Zig Ziglar. I'm not sure. But, there's not winning and losing, Justin. There's winning and learning.
That's right. That's right.
And it's not failure if you learn something. And I know you learned a few things. One thing that you wrote that I love, you kind of caught this idea of entrepreneurship and the ability to, make money.
That's right.
And you said you loved rubbing two dimes together and making a quarter. And I think that's really funny. But
That's
it kind of started something in you. And we've got a lot more to talk about, but we do need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Justin Henshaw on the Something Extra podcast.
In business, the tendency is to seek out partners who are bigger, faster, stronger. When it comes to IT, you should be looking for smarter, faster, better. That's just what you'll find with the talented technologists at Technology Partners. Our experts develop custom solutions to tackle your most complex challenges, all to simplify your processes in the smartest, most efficient way possible. The time to be swift and nimble starts now. Go to technologypartners.net/solutions and see what's possible.
So, welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with Justin Henshaw. We have been having so much fun talking about a lot of different things, and we just kind of left off. He really had a food truck that really kind of catapulted him into the food and beverage, and then he went on to do other things. So, can you just touch on that briefly, what you did after Coasters, Justin?
Sure. Well, at the time there was a big trend for like these self-serve frozen yogurt shops. I was a huge fan of that and that concept. We had a location that I thought would be perfect for it, and we found an investor who's still such a wonderful supporter of ours. Just being a good local friend, and he's been such a supporter to the college and the community here. But we brought them on board, and we opened up Fuse. So Fuse was our independent brand of a frozen yogurt shop, and it was very successful in the beginning. And now we have three of them, and hopefully one day, who knows? I mean, I'm kind of busy right now, but one day we might franchise that and grow it.
Yeah.
We love Fuse, and that definitely paved the way for really kind of a lot. Got
Mhm.
into I wanted to maybe at the time I was really focused on franchising Fuse, but I still wanted to learn about the franchise experience. So I became a franchisee myself, got into a couple Jimmy John's, a couple of Smoothie Kings, a Salada Salad Kitchen, and kind of just really just learning, about
Right.
experience. I love learning new concepts and learning and opening new stores. And that's kind of my passion, is just doing something new. They always, say that I get bored really easily, which might be one of my downfalls. But, that's just kind of like the next 10 years. We did 3 Fuses. We did 2 Jimmy John's, 2 Smoothie Kings, Salada Salad Kitchen. We did an independent brand, but we ended up having to sell that to focus on our GAGE, our project now.
Mhm. One of the things that I thought about really, now you had the burger and fries, with coasters, but one of the things I thought about is, you were like a fitness instructor, you're a Marine. All of these brands, Justin, kind of have a healthy thread in them though, right? Smoothie King that's good. Jimmy John's is good quality food. And then the salads, and stuff. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but
Well, I will say that it spoke to the, just freshness, right? I mean, burgers and fries, obviously that's greasy and something different. But
mhm.
like for me, I was trying to break into something I don't think was done very well here, or at least in the fast casual world, which is just fresh. Salada was awesome and very popular. We ended up choosing a bad location for it, but it was still very popular. And I think it just spoke to just people want fresh, not always just greasy, right?
Mhm,
Same thing
mhm.
can be said for Jimmy John's, right? I mean, it's a sub, so it will put the pounds on, but
We'll
at the
put the
same
pound.
time, but at the same time, it's fresh. It's very
Mhm.
they're known for their quality and their freshness, and
That's right.
at least it's not grease, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Well, so today you are the CEO of Gage, and we're going to talk about Gage a lot, but you're also the CEO of Henshaw Companies, and that is your overall parent. And I think you've got 13 companies or something like that underneath. Maybe you've added a few more since
We're actually taking
recently.
a few off. Yeah, we're
Oh,
actually
you
taking.
are.
Well, we're down. We're kind of divesting from some of our restaurants. We've gotten advice from investors when we got into Gage, like, listen, you might need to clean up your plate a little bit,
Right.
and so we're focused on really narrowing it down to our independent brand like Fuse and Island Sound. That's not going to go anywhere. I think
Hmm.
I love Jimmy John's. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but we're actually actively selling Smoothie Kings right now, to somebody that's actually my operator, which is a great story, but we can't get into that. So we're divesting from a lot. We have real estate in our portfolio, just a little bit here on the island, that and just a few of those, and that way I can really focus on Gage. That's kind of.
Right. And there's a lesson there, Justin, because you cannot boil the ocean and do well, right? I mean, narrowing the focus, having 5 things on your list, not 200, is really the way to go. Well, I
It
want to
took me
camp out.
15 years to learn that, by the way, but I think I've.
Oh, listen, we're still learning it. I mean, Greg and I, my husband and I co-founded our company 29 years ago. We're still learning that. I can get distracted by the shiny bobbly things a lot. And, you just
Yeah,
cannot have 200 things on your list
so
and do them well, right? You just can't. So it's hard. It is hard because there's a lot of good things out there to do, but you want to choose the best. So I want to talk about Gage, but first of all, you've built such a strong culture,
mhm.
at Henshaw. You have a favorite Bible verse that kind of informs and kind of is overarching for Gage and Henshaw. What is that verse? And tell me what the verse is. I'm going to ask you a few questions about it.
Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. And it's just this idea that we're the Bible says we're put on this planet to do 3 things: worship Him, multiply, love and have family, and then work. We
Hmm.
are designed to work and have meaning and purpose, which is everything that's about Gage, right? That is what Gage is all about, and we'll not want to jump ahead, but yeah. So I mean, it's this idea that I always told my team with Henshaw Companies that I believe that work is the most important word in our language. It's a 4-letter word, but it is incredible, and I even say that it's more important than love. always say, like, there's a 4-letter word. It's the most important word in our language. What is it?
Mhm.
Everybody goes to love. I
Said
said, no,
love.
it's work, because real love takes work.
Hmm.
Takes work. And all the things that are valuable and incredible in our lives, if you look at them, they all take work. They were never given, because anything given was never valuable to anybody. It's because you work to achieve it that it means anything. And you can
Hmm.
say that about your marriage, right? To try to telling
Yeah.
of people that have been married for 20 years that it doesn't take work, right?
Hmm.
You can say that about parenting and having kids. You can say it about your career, and I really think that you could lay a lot of problems that we're having in our society right now at the feet of work ethic is dying, and people are losing the sense of meaning and purpose in their lives.
Hmm. Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Yeah, work. I think you even say work is the salt of life.
Yeah,
Did you
that's
say that? Okay.
that.
Okay.
Because
Um,
without it, it really doesn't, that you just think about it. I mean, how many stories do you hear about somebody that gets rich too quickly and then they ruin everything? Or, like somebody that wins the lottery, and dies of an overdose. It's just like there's all
mhm.
these examples that it really is because you work to achieve them that they mean anything to you. And that is really the true sense of joy in our world. And that is how we're designed. I mean, again, you go back to Genesis 3. God gave Adam a garden to work and to keep.
To work,
I
right.
mean, God could have given him a couch and an Xbox, right? But he didn't. He gave him a garden to have purpose. And this was before anything, right? I mean, so he knew that man needed purpose, that
Yeah,
people needed meaning in this world. And
that's so good. That's so good. And I could not agree with you more because I do think that a lot of people have lost that, and they don't look at work that way. Justin, they're like, we're living for the weekend. It's like, I gotta hurry and get to the weekend, or hurry and get to retirement, But Kim Blanchard was on my show last year, and that guy is so incredibly inspiring. He's like 84 years old or something like that now, still writing books. He's written
right,
over 60 books, and he said, a lot of people think, oh, the best years are behind me. He said, I say the best years are yet to come. And he's still living with God. So he's still working. He was working on a book when he recorded the podcast. It's just, I do believe you're right, though, that it does. It gives us joy. It gives us meaning. It gives us purpose. So I want to ask you this, because you refer to the employees at Henshaw. You refer to them as your family. And I want to ask you about this because I read an article recently. And this gentleman was saying, stop referring to your workplace as family.
I've
They
heard that. I've
have
heard that.
you read that too? Yeah, and he's like, stop referring to them as family. They are a team. They're not a family. They're different. But I mean, Greg and I co-founded Technology Partners 29 years ago. We refer to them as our technology partners family. I mean, we really do truly try to care for them
Yeah.
as we would family, but we also have expectations and accountability, but that doesn't mean you don't care for them. So how do you think about that?
I think it's to each his own. I mean, that's the environment that I love to create. I mean, I'm drawn to it. In fact, matter of fact, my wife and I talk about this. We get too close, sometimes to our employees and our team
Yeah.
members, and we've been burned by that, many times. So it does come back to bite us sometimes. But I think overall, it creates an atmosphere that we enjoy and that we want, right? I've always felt that way, and I really can't. I understand the argument, to like only call them team members or whatever. And certainly, we are all about team members, and we do say
Hmm.
we don't say the word employee. We believe that employee is a class certificate, classification, a tax classification, but not necessarily, how you view somebody. So we always say team members. But I tell you what, over the years, we've really gotten close. I mean, we have them over our house all the time. We do things together. We have bowling nights. We'll shut the stores down. we'll shut all of them down and go bowling.
Yeah.
And then there's that's the culture. I mean, that it just goes into the GAGE. We built that together. Like, this wasn't just Justin that built GAGE. It was basically all of Henshaw companies, and that's what really that's where it came from. We worked over on GAGE for the past many,
Hmm.
many years.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
I understand that argument. I've read that article, or I've read that viewpoint, and I get it. But I tell you what, this generation, the days of collecting a paycheck and going home with no other engagement or feedback are over. That is a generational thing where, like, my generation, our older generations, we got a paycheck, we showed up, we did our work, we got a paycheck. That was the transaction, right? That was it. But that doesn't work anymore. That does
Mm-hmm.
not work anymore. This generation has evolved, and maybe rightfully so, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we older generations, we get crabby, like, just take your paycheck and shut up, right? But I mean, I think that we've gotten to a place where we need more than that. And when you have a Gallup poll that says that employee engagement has fell down to 30%, what it used to be. I mean, that's why we're experiencing the workforce issues that we're experiencing right now. Is
Mm-hmm.
there's no news is good news is not we're cutting it anymore. You actually have to get involved and communicate and engage with them.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And, I just think people, there's an old adage that people don't care what you know until they know how much you care, and I do believe care and compassion, just like what you would for a family. I think it goes a long way. I've got a friend, Joel Manby. I don't know if you know that name or not. He was in Atlanta. And I know, you're a little far from Atlanta there, at St. Simon Island, but he was the CEO for Hirsch and Family Entertainment and then became the CEO for SeaWorld. He wrote the book Love Works, Justin,
I know that one.
and
Yeah.
it works. It
Yes.
works. I
Yeah.
mean, it does. And, I love that. Well,
Henshaw
let's,
companies. I mean, I'm sorry. Just last thing I'll jump
yeah.
into. I cannot say that, like, you have to say that we did this as a team, right? What we have is
Mhm.
I'm not obviously I'm the quarterback, but I mean it takes a team to build this. And you want a Zig Ziglar quote? It's you don't build a business, you build a team, and the team builds the business, right?
Mhm.
And we believe that wholeheartedly. So my love for this workforce, and this generation, I've heard way too many negative things said about this generation. This generation is not bad. They are incredible. They and they in this world that they were brought into, they didn't create it, we did, right?
Mhm.
This
That's right.
instant gratification. I got to have my pizza and I got to have it now. Well, that might work for delivery drivers and Ubers, but it doesn't work for career fulfillment and real meaningful relationships, right? I mean, that takes time. And
Mhm.
but they've just evolved, and we need to evolve to catch up with them. We need to
Yeah.
give them the tools that they need.
Right. So, perfect segue.
Yeah.
Perfect segue. You set me up, didn't you? So, let's talk about Gage. And because you've seen this, you've spent time on this with employee engagement and that. So, tell me about Gage. Tell me what you're doing with Gage. What is it meant to do? What are you excited about there?
Gage is a game changer. It's admittedly it's a shot for the fences. It's a way of changing. It's a disruptor meant to be so. And it's really quite simple. The idea is that whenever somebody works, whenever somebody does something, right? We talk about the paycheck, but they do more than that, right? They build and they create. They're working, towards something. They're not just
Mhm.
clocking in and clocking out anymore. They need meaning and purpose, and that's what all the studies show. And so, how do you do that? How do you give them meaning and purpose, even in like entry level positions? Because that's where it starts, right? Like from 15 to 27, you work at a restaurant or a coffee shop, and these entry level positions are so very important. They are so very important because that's where you learn your soft skill development, and that's where you learn how to show up on time and have a schedule
Mhm.
and accomplish things. They are so important to the foundation of who you become, that we need to do better at utilizing it, right? Well, so giving meaning and purpose is like saying, hey, when somebody works, why don't you allow them to own the product of their work? So I use the example of the filing cabinet, right? Like right now, businesses uses a filing cabinet, whether it be a digital, HR software platform or whatever. It's still a filing cabinet, meaning the business owns the data. So
Yes.
the employee gets evaluations, they get They get, promotions, they get employee, customer feedback, reviews and stuff like that. All of it goes into a manila folder, into a filing cabinet, and it stays with the business. And that's why employees don't care about it, because it's not their property. It should be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not their property. They know that that manila folder is waiting for a shredder one day. And whenever they leave, so there are no consequences, good or bad, that whenever they leave, it's all disposable. It doesn't matter. So what we need to do is create a universal system, something that's something that they own, something that they can take with them, and say that, hey, this is who I am. This is the product of my work. This is what I'm capable of. And if you do that, and we have done it, we had our MVP that launched this past January. You see the light in their eyes. It comes on. It's like, wow, this is mine. This is mine. This is not the business's. This is mine. And then I get to take it and show it off to my next employer, and then my next one. And then I can build a tangible, real, proof of all the product of my work. It's kind of, and the reason that it's so, it's never been done before. It's something that, really takes, like, hold on, what now? Like, you kind of have to really think about it. But then once you think about it, you're like, how has no one done this before? Right. It's really quite simple. It's just, different.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah, I'm really thinking it's more of a comprehensive view. It's really a comprehensive view of that person's life of work.
yeah. So
Really.
the simple elevator pitch is this. It's like, GAGE is a universal system for measuring performance within the workforce. It transfers from job to job, where an employee can own, and build a database of their work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have a metric. So we've invented an employment score, which scares people at first, but once people understand how it works and the freedom and control that the employees have over it, it really is liberating, because we live in a world of metrics, right? I mean,
Yes,
so like, if we have, throughout our entire lives, everything is attached to a metric, whether it be GPAs, grades, your blood pressure, your weight, your bank account, your credit score. These are all metrics, that guide us through our lives, because metrics show you where you are, show you where you were, and show you where you could be.
that's right.
And without metrics, ask any athlete this. What are you going to do without metrics? Without metrics, you can't grow. You can't,
Mhm.
or you can't see. Which is the motivation behind it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Drucker famously said, "You cannot manage what you don't measure."
That's right.
I
That's
mean,
right.
how do you know? How do you know? Talking about trainers and fitness. What's your PR, right? What's your personal record, and you want to try to beat that the next time. So,
Every
um,
business understands it. It's a KPI, right? Like,
mhm, mhm.
what are you going to achieve? What do you want? And if it's all disposable and meaningless, and you can go from door to door to door to door without any, traction, well, man, that is disheartening. That's discouraging.
Mhm.
That doesn't inspire. I have a wonderful, story that we tell over and over again, because it's happened a couple times, and I hope it doesn't happen again. So in the beginning, we have an algorithm, right? A very, an awesome patent pending algorithm that actually, has to update every now and then, right? It will always evolve. There will always be new components. There will always be new weights. As we get more data, it's always going to learn and improve. And before we fixed it now, but before, in the very early stages, whenever we made an adjustment to the algorithm, the scores changed. Um, and whenever the scores changed, now this thing means less than nothing. At the time, we would have like 800 users, right? And
Mhm.
it's not a thing yet. But boy, did we get blown up. Whenever there's scores, we would send an email like saying, "Hey, scores are going to shift. Don't worry, they all shift. So it's all relative, right? You're the way to your, you know." But boy, we were like, "Man, what happened? I was in the 800s. Like, what did I do? Like what?" it would
Right.
Then we get this emotional attachment to this number that does not matter, because that's what we
Mhm.
do as human beings. We love metrics. We love it.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling whenever you jump on a scale and you don't like what you see, or maybe you do like what you see, but it's a very real experience.
Mhm. For
Um,
sure. Well,
and
so what's next for Gage? I mean, where are you guys in the process right now? You have funding. I mean, how can our listeners engage with Gage?
yeah, right. It was
Yes.
perfectly named, right? Yeah, we are raising our seed round. We launched our MVP product in January, and admittedly with minimal resources, and so we're hoping to close our seed round in Q4 this year. Uh,
Hmm.
and we're in diligence with a VC group out of Texas. I'm sure I won't name them, but I think you guys know them really well. And then we have an angel network out of Florida that is kind of circling the bait. So we're excited about that and very hopeful, God willing. But then raising our round and then get to Gen 2. So the beautiful part about our business model is that we are a B2B SaaS product right now.
Hmm.
We need to, but we're not. That's really kind of not our heart. We're actually a hybrid. So we need to build out more B2C components and features. We need more features for the employee, right? So we have incredible resume builders coming out. We have peer-to-peer connections, peer-to-peer referrals coming. A lot of incredible B2C features that's really going to help the organic growth, right? So
Yeah.
right now, a B2B product is sold by a business, like a Salesforce going out there and, selling to a business. But once we have the B2C components, we're excited because we already know, because we've surveyed and we've been working with this product and we've been talking to our employees and even the other businesses that are in the system. They want that connection. They would love a connection like that. So we're excited about that. That's kind of our next steps.
Well, listeners, stay tuned. Follow Justin. I think it's going to be a game changer. I really do, Justin. It's going to be really fun to see. I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'm going to ask you something extra.
Okay.
I know that your faith is really important to you.
Mhm.
How, does it inform your life? I mean, how does it inform the way you interact with your children, your wife, how does it inform your life? How's faith show up for you?
I always struggle with these questions because I always feel like I'm a far better business person than I am a Christian, and I want to make sure that Christ is always at the center of my life, and I know that I don't. Right? I know that it should be more. But for me, my faith guides me because I couldn't do, you know, when you're starting out in business, you could live off of ramen noodles and risk everything, and you don't care. Before family
Right.
or kid or like something goes belly up, fine. I like ramen. I love it. Let's just eat on, as Dave Ramsey would say, red beans and rice, like beans and rice. But you start having kids and you start having family and a mortgage and all this kind of stuff. And it becomes real, right? It becomes and starting any business, especially a tech startup, is so risky, so I couldn't do, but I believe that, God is guiding me, down this path.
Mhm.
Particularly with Gage, I feel like Gage is a force for good that is going to do incredible things for this generation. And I believe that I'm called to do that. Uh,
Mhm.
and I don't have to ask for proof because God proves it to me every day. It's just every time God opens a door and, just something Jim Beck told, let's go back to him. I mean, that is someone
Right.
that has made so many connections, for us. And if that's not proof, I don't know what it is. It's just every time I have doubts, that my faith brings me
Mhm.
back. And that's the only way that I'm
Yeah.
able to move
That's
forward.
so good. That's
Otherwise,
so
otherwise the fear would just eat me alive. I
Sure,
wouldn't
it would.
be able to
Yeah.
move because I'd be so afraid.
Yeah. But you know that, God has called you to the work, and so he will equip you to do the work that he's called you to do, right? I mean, that's what you rest in. Well, let me ask you this, Justin. This is called something extra. What do you believe is the something extra every leader needs?
Wow. Um, I'm going to go back to what you kind of alluded to in the very beginning, was that just this idea of there's no such thing as failure. You're just learning, right? Just this idea that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes and learn from them. I've met too many business owners that have, you know, I think failed just because they quit, or just gave up. It's like
Mhm.
you haven't you haven't lost until you quit, right? You haven't failed until you really just
Right.
right?
That's
Um,
good.
and because otherwise it's just it's just time. You'll figure it out. Like, you just keep at it. You just keep at it.
Hmm.
And rejoice when times are good, because they're not going to stay that way. You know,
Right. Knowing that up front is just, there's ebbs and flows, there's valleys and there's mountaintops, right? We all have them. So yeah, that's really good. And you know what? We say we love experimentation,
hmm
Justice. So we'll experiment with something, and we could stay here all day telling you the things that we experimented with that did not work.
yeah,
But again, it's okay because you learn and you do better next time.
that's right. That's right. It's just it's so powerful too, because everybody gets so, and even I have to tell myself that, right? We have to remind ourselves of that every time we make a mistake. Uh,
Hmm.
we just keep at it. I think business owners, entrepreneurs of any industry could really be served well by knowing that, and holding on to it.
Agreed. Well, this has been so much fun. And I cannot wait to meet you face to face. I'm sure that's going to happen, whether it's in trust or whatever.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate you making the time to be on the show today, Justin.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity and this support. I mean, it's just awesome, and you do so many incredible things. We didn't even get it. Anyway, I'm a huge fan. Okay, just let me just say that, right? I'm a huge fan.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc. 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.